3 years ago, I took a job doing delivery runs for a local supply company in northern Idaho. Nothing glamorous, mostly hauling food, propane, and basic supplies to remote cabins and lodges snowed in for the season. It was lonely work. Miles of frozen road, radio static, and endless white silence. Most days, I didn't see a soul. Late one January afternoon, my dispatcher radioed in a new delivery. A single order to a place 40 miles north. Oddly small. Just a few food bags, 2 propane tanks, and a box of medical supplies. The name didn't sound familiar. And when I checked the records, there were no previous deliveries to that address. A new customer, this far into winter, was rare. Still, I loaded up and left town around 3 p.m., hoping to make it there before nightfall. The first half of the drive was easy. Flat, empty roads slicing through snow-laden pine forest. But once I passed the last plowed junction, the trail narrowed into a single icy path, barely wide enough for the truck. The snow deepened. Branches clawed at the windshield. The GPS flickered, then froze. By the time I reached the coordinates, the sun had already sunk low, spilling thin orange light through the trees. The cabin looked abandoned, half buried in snow, no smoke from the chimney, no footprints. It was small and square, with a sagging porch and a single frost-covered window. I parked, honked twice, and waited. Nothing. After a minute, I grabbed the delivery bags and trudged up the short path. My boots crunched through crusted snow. I knocked. The sound echoed inside, hollow and empty. "Delivery," I called. No response. I hesitated, then turned the knob. Unlocked. The door creaked open into a single dim room. It was colder inside than out, and the air felt thick, like the place had been sealed too long. A wood stove sat unused in the corner, its mouth black with soot. "Hello?" I called again, stepping just past the threshold. No answer, but something was off. There was a smell, faint, metallic, sour underneath. My eyes adjusted slowly. There wasn't much inside. A cot, a table, a few cans on a shelf, and a wooden chair in the middle of the room, facing the door. I froze. Ropes hung loosely around its arms and legs. It looked like someone had been tied there and freed themselves. A chill crept up my back. I set the bags down and turned to leave. That's when I saw it. My truck door, the driver's side, was open. I knew I'd closed it. I always did. The wind was still. The snow around the tires was untouched. No footprints, no tracks. Just that open door gaping toward the trees. Every instinct screamed to run, but I forced myself to walk, slow, deliberate, back to the truck. My pulse pounded in my ears. I scanned the tree line. Nothing moved. Inside, everything looked the same. The keys were still in the ignition. The radio hummed faint static. I locked the doors, put it in reverse, and backed out fast. As I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching from the woods. I kept checking the mirrors, half expecting to see movement behind me. But all I saw was the trail of my own headlights, fading in the snow. By the time I hit the main road, night had fallen. I drove straight to the dispatch office and told my supervisor what happened. He frowned, turned to his computer, and started checking the order logs. "There's no delivery scheduled for that address," he said. "What? You sent me there." He turned the screen toward me. The address wasn't there. No name, no entry, no record of a call. Nothing. I thought maybe he'd made a mistake, so I showed him the delivery slip. It wasn't in the system either. No trace it had ever existed. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called the sheriff's department. A deputy agreed to check the property. Later that day, he called me back. "There's nothing out there," he said. "Cabin's been empty for years." "What about the ropes?" "The chair? Just an old piece of furniture. No rope, no signs. Anyone's been there recently?" He sounded casual, almost dismissive, but I could hear something under his voice. A hesitation. A pause too long between sentences. 2 weeks later, I quit the job. I never went back on that route, though sometimes I still think about it, especially when I see that stretch of forest on the map. The last time I checked, the GPS coordinates still exist, but the address, it's gone, erased like it was never there at all. I used to work as a nighttime security guard for a small office building in upstate New York. It wasn't a tough job, just watching the cameras, keeping the lot clear, locking up when someone forgot. The building sat on the edge of town, pressed against a stretch of dark woods that went on for miles. In winter, the place got so quiet, it felt like the world outside had stopped existing. Most nights passed without incident. By 6 p.m., every office light was off, and I'd have the whole building to myself until sunrise. One night in late January, a snowstorm rolled in. Thick, heavy flakes that buried everything in white. Roads were slick, the wind screamed against the windows, and the few cars left in the lot probably belonged to people too nervous to drive home. I had my little heater running, coffee in a thermos, and my phone glowing beside me. At around 11 p.m., I started my rounds. The upper floor had a handful of offices and a break room. The lower floor was mostly storage, and the main lobby with its glass foyer facing the parking lot. Everything was silent except for the hum of the heating system and the old pipes groaning against the cold. When I reached the lobby, I did what I always did, checked outside. That's when I saw him. A man. He was standing just past the reach of the street lamp, near the tree line. No coat, just jeans and a thin gray sweater. His head tilted slightly, as if he was listening for something. Snow whipped around him, but he didn't move, didn't shiver, didn't brush it away. For a long second, I thought maybe he was a stranded driver. But something about the stillness in his stance froze my gut. I keyed the radio. "Anyone still here?" No reply. I knocked on the glass. "Hey, you okay out there?" He didn't react. He just stepped forward, slowly, not toward the door, not toward the street, just closer to the building. His movements were wrong, too controlled, too deliberate. Then I noticed something that made my chest tighten. No footprints. The snow was falling thick, but there should have been some trace behind him. There wasn't. It looked like he'd just materialized there. I backed away from the glass. My heart thudded in my throat. I hurried back to the desk, hands trembling as I switched to the security cameras. When the parking lot feed came up, it glitched for half a second. Then it cleared. The man was gone. I froze, staring at the empty lot. It had been maybe 10 seconds since I'd seen him. There was nowhere he could have gone that fast. I wanted to go back and look, but something deep inside me said don't. Then the motion alert chimed. Zone 4, second floor hallway. That made no sense. Every door was locked. No one could have gotten in without me hearing. I clicked the feed. At the end of the hallway, just beyond the glow of the red exit sign, he was standing there. The same man. The same tilted head. My mouth went dry. He wasn't moving, just watching. The faint outline of his face turned toward the camera. The static crawled faintly around the edges of the frame. like the feed itself didn't want to hold his image. I reached for my phone to call the cops, but my hands were shaking so hard I dropped it. When I picked it up again, there was no signal, just no service, glowing at the top of the screen. The lights flickered once. The camera feeds blinked out. For 2 seconds, everything went black. When the monitors came back, the hallway was empty. I didn't wait to see more. I grabbed my coat and keys and bolted for the side exit. The moment I opened the door, the wind hit me like a wall, snow whipping against my face. I sprinted across the lot, heart hammering, not daring to look behind me. I jumped into my car, slammed the locks, and turned the key. The engine sputtered, coughed, then roared to life. In the reflection of my windshield for just a second, I thought I saw a figure standing in the glass foyer, watching me leave. I didn't look twice. I drove through the blizzard until I hit the gas station off Route 9. My supervisor sounded half asleep when I called, irritated until he heard my voice shaking. Then he told me to stay put. The next morning, he called back. They'd sent someone to check the building. No one there, he said, no damage. Nothing missing. He hesitated. But they did find something. My stomach turned. What? Bare footprints outside the second floor emergency exit. In the snow, I quit the following week, never set foot in that building again. They hired a new guard, and as far as I know, nothing strange ever happened after that. But every winter, when the snow starts falling and the wind begins to moan against the glass, I think about that man, standing perfectly still under the street lamp, listening. And I wonder if he ever stopped. It was snowing the day I drove into northern Wisconsin. Thick, white flakes drifting through the pines, swallowing the world in silence. I'd rented a small cabin deep in the woods, far from everything. After the breakup, I needed quiet. No phone, no internet. Just 3 days to clear my head. The cabin looked just like the pictures. One room, small porch, a stack of firewood by the door. The listing had said it belonged to an older couple who rented it out during the off-season. The price had been suspiciously low, but I didn't care. Solitude was what I wanted. By the time I got there, daylight was fading. The snow made the air feel heavier somehow, dense, muffled. When I stepped inside, it was colder than I expected. The place smelled faintly of wooden dust. The main room had a couch, a small wood stove, a table, and a door that led to the bedroom. Bare walls, no photos, no personal touches. It didn't feel lived in. I built a fire and heated some soup. The crackling of the flames filled the silence, but even that felt too loud. There was something about that kind of quiet that made you hear everything. The settling wood, your own heartbeat, the whisper of the wind pressing against the windows. That night I turned in early. For a while, I lay in the dark, listening to the wind. Then, sometime after midnight, a sound pulled me from sleep. A faint, rhythmic creak, like someone slowly rocking back and forth on the porch. At first, I thought it was just the trees shifting under the snow. But then I realized the sound was coming from inside the cabin. I froze. My eyes adjusted to the dim glow of the dying fire. The sound continued, creak, pause, creak, steady, patient. It took me nearly 10 minutes to gather enough courage to sit up and look. Through the open bedroom door, I could see into the main room. The firelight threw long shadows across the floorboards. For a moment, I thought I saw something move, something tall near the window. But when I blinked, it was gone. The sound stopped. I didn't sleep after that. In the morning, I walked into the main room, half expecting to find footprints or some sign of what I'd heard. But there was nothing. Everything looked normal. I told myself it must have been the wind. To clear my head, I went for a walk down a trail behind the cabin. The woods were dense, the air sharp and cold. The snow was untouched except for my own prints. But that feeling of being watched, it stayed with me. Every few steps, I'd glance over my shoulder, certain I'd see someone standing between the trees. When I got back, something was off. The pile of firewood by the porch looked disturbed. Some of the logs had been moved, shifted, almost as if someone had taken a few and put them back wrong. I hadn't touched them. That night, I made sure every door and window was locked. I even wedged a chair under the front doorknob. The fire burned bright, and for a while, I let the warmth lull me into thinking everything was fine. Then, just after midnight, it started again. The creaking, slow, deliberate. This time it was coming from the porch. I held my breath. The sound of wood bending under weight. Someone was out there, standing just beyond the door. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The steps shifted slightly, one creak, then another, and stopped right by the door. I waited for a knock that never came. I wanted to reach for my phone, but I knew there was no signal out here. The silence after the creaking stopped was somehow worse. It was a silence that listened back. Hours passed. I must have fallen asleep from exhaustion, because the next thing I remember was the pale light of morning spilling through the curtains. Everything was still, too still. When I checked the porch, there were no footprints. The snow was smooth, untouched, but when I went to make coffee, I noticed something that made my chest tighten. The kitchen window, one I was sure I'd locked, was open just a crack. I didn't stay long after that. I packed my things, barely bothering to clean up. The drive back felt endless. The woods pressed close to the road, thick and dark, and every curve of the highway made me glance at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone in the back seat. When I finally got a cell signal, I pulled over. I opened the rental listing to leave a review. Something vague about strange noises and poor maintenance. But what I saw made my stomach drop. The listing was still there. Same photos, same price. But the owner's name and contact number were gone. Just blank spaces where they'd been. Something about that didn't sit right. I opened the confirmation email. The one with the receipt and the address. That's when I noticed it. The address in the email was different. One number off. I had stayed in the wrong cabin. No one had ever rented it, and someone else had been inside with me the whole time. It was the kind of cold that made the air hurt to breathe. Midnight, January, northern Minnesota. My headlights cut through thick sheets of snow. The roads slick with ice and silence. I'd been driving for hours, trying to make it home before the store swallowed everything, but the whiteout had won. I needed to stop, find somewhere, anywhere, to wait it out. That's when I saw it. A car, half buried in snow, angled off the shoulder like it had skidded out. No lights, no movement, just a shadowed outline against the trees. Normally, I would have kept going. People around here knew better than to drive in this kind of weather. But then I caught it. The faint flicker of something inside. Movement. I slowed down, pulling up beside it, my tires crunching through the frozen slush. The driver's side window was frosted over. So I rolled mine down and called out, "You all right in there?" No answer. Then the door opened. A man stepped out, tall but thin, his clothes soaked through. Just a hoodie and jeans, no coat, no gloves. His hair was wet with melted snow sticking to his forehead. He didn't shiver. He didn't blink. He just looked at me. "You need a ride?" I asked, instantly regretting it. He nodded once. No words. I unlocked the passenger door. The moment he climbed in, the air changed. The smell hit first, something rotten, like wet metal and moldy fabric. He sat perfectly still, hands on his knees, staring ahead as if the windshield showed something only he could see. "Where you headed?" I asked, forcing small talk. He didn't look at me. "Town? Which one?" "Just town." His voice was hoarse, flat, not tired, empty. I nodded slowly, merging back onto the road. The wipers groaned against the glass. We drove in silence, the only sound the wind battering the car. Every few seconds, I glanced at him. He didn't move, didn't even breathe loud. His skin looked wrong, grayish, like something drained out of him long ago. "You drive this way often?" he asked suddenly. I startled a little. "Not really. Just heading home?" He turned his head slightly, watching me now. His eyes were pale, cloudy in the dashboard light. "Not many people out tonight." "Yeah," I muttered. "Storm's bad." He smiled, or tried to. It didn't reach his eyes. Something deep in my chest began to ache, the kind of fear that comes from instinct, not reason. I wanted to stop, to tell him to get out, but thought of doing that, of being alone on that road again, felt worse. We drove for another 10 minutes. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "I used to live near here." "Oh yeah?" I said, not really wanting to know more. He nodded slowly. "Long time ago, before they closed it down." "Closed what down?" He didn't answer. The air felt thick now. My throat was dry. I focused on the road, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw his fingers start to twitch, like he was counting something on them. "You said you're heading to town," I muttered. "Almost there." "Not yet," he said quietly. His tone froze me. The next few miles passed in total silence. I could feel him watching me. When I finally saw the distant glow of a gas station sign through the storm, I felt relief like oxygen. "There," I said, forcing a laugh. "Gas, warmth, people." "Stop here." We weren't near the sign yet. Just a stretch of empty road. No lights, no houses, just black trees and blowing snow. "I can take you up ahead." "Here." His voice was sharp this time. Final. I slowed down and pulled over. He didn't move for a long moment. Then slowly he turned his head toward me. Up close, his skin looked waxy. His lips were cracked, but there was no steam when he breathed. "Thanks for the ride," he said. He opened the door and stepped into the snow, disappearing almost instantly in the whiteout. I watched for a second, waiting to see where he went, but there was nothing. No footprints, just wind. I hit the gas and didn't stop until I reached the gas station. When I stepped out, the smell from the passenger seat clung to me, damp and metallic. Then I saw it. On the door handle, smudges, dark, dried, rust-colored. Blood. I backed away, my heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. Inside the station, the clerk looked at me and said, "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I didn't answer, because as I turned to look through the glass at my car, there were wet footprints, bare footprints, leading away from the passenger side, straight into the trees, and the snow was still falling.